Welcome everyone. I'm creating the video for the first time for my new YouTube channel Pharmacology Made Easy. Okay. First of all, to introduce myself, I'm Dr. Tushar Baheti. I have completed my MBBS and MD Pharmacology. Okay. So guys, the very purpose of creating this new YouTube channel is to make my subject, that is pharmacology, conceptual and easier for the students to understand. As you know, pharmacology is the subject for the second year for various faculties such as MBBS, BDS, nursing as well as physiotherapy. And most of the time those students have fear in the mind about the pharmacology, that we don't remember the classification, that we don't remember the mechanism of a drug, and this is a very volatile subject. So in this lecture series we are trying to make the pharmacology easier by understanding the concepts. Okay, so for today's video, without wasting the time, I have selected the topic bronchial asthma. So this is a very interesting topic, so listen carefully and I am sure that you will easily understand the various drugs which are acting in the bronchial asthma. Okay, so guys, bronchial asthma, it is a respiratory disease. Okay, and the meaning of word asthma, which is actually a Greek word, is difficulty in breathing. So asthma means difficulty in breathing. So the patients of bronchial asthma, they have difficulty in breathing mainly because of the bronchoconstriction. Okay, so there is a constriction of bronchi in the tracheobronchial tree or in the respiratory tract, because of which there is not enough air which is going into the lungs, and the patient may suffer from the dyspnea or breathlessness. Okay, so this is the main symptom of bronchial asthma. So today first we will see the definition of bronchial asthma, its various types, then we will see the pathophysiology of asthma, and then we will go for the treatment approach of asthma. Okay, so first of all, a definition. So though it looks a very big definition, we are trying to make it in a segment, trying to understand in a segment. So chronic inflammatory disease of airways. So what is asthma? It is a chronic inflammatory disease of airways. Previously, the asthma is considered only as a type 1 allergic or hypersensitivity reaction. But nowadays, we have very well understood the pathophysiology of asthma, and apart from that type 1 allergy or hypersensitivity, what is main present is a chronic inflammatory component. Okay, so inflammation is present in asthma, which is associated with hyper responsiveness. Okay, hyper responsiveness means what? Okay, whenever there is an entry of antigen or any foreign substance in our body, our body tries to react it by producing the antibody or by repelling that antigen. So this is the responsiveness. But whenever there is an exaggerated or extra response or over response, that we call as a hyper responsiveness. So in bronchial asthma, mostly there is a hyper responsiveness to the antigens which have entered from the respiratory tract. Of hyper responsiveness of what? Tracheobronchial smooth muscles, and because of that results in reversible airway obstruction, that is bronchoconstriction. So chronic inflammation which is associated with hyperresponsiveness of tracheobronchial smooth muscle, and that result in reversible airway obstruction. Airway gets obstructed, but remember, though I have written it reversible, it is reversible only in the initial phases, and if we don't give the treatment at this step, the asthma can become the irreversible. Okay, and what is the main thing? Bronchoconstriction. So this is about the definition of bronchial asthma. Now considering the types of asthma, so there are various classifications for the types. We are going to concentrate mainly on one. Depending upon the etiology, it can be classified into the extrinsic asthma and intrinsic asthma. Okay, extrinsic asthma, when there is a known predisposing factor or known allergen present. Okay, so in case of extrinsic asthma, there is a known allergens like dust or any animal dander or pollen grains. And most of the times this extrinsic asthma, the patients have other allergic diseases, but it is not always the case. So depending upon that, the extrinsic asthma can be further classified into the atopic and non-atopic asthma. Okay. What is meaning of atopic? Atopies is the clinical representation of allergy. So atopic means these patients have an allergic component because of which they have developed the asthma, and in these patients mostly there are the IgE type of antibodies which are present to react with the foreign antigen. Okay. While the second type of among the extrinsic, so though there is an extrinsic allergen or allergen from outside, these patients mostly don't have other allergic diseases, and instead of IgE there may be IgM or IgG type of antibodies present in this type of the subject. Okay. While the second type of asthma, depending upon the etiology, is intrinsic asthma, when there is no known predisposing factor or no known allergen present or no known immunological basis is found. Okay, so this is about intrinsic asthma. Depending upon the severity, the bronchial asthma can be classified into the episodic or intermittent, and second is a persistent. Okay. Episodic or intermittent, as you can understand from the words, episodic means in the episodes. So patient have a acute episodes of asthma, and in between the two episodes the patient is all right. Okay. Now just a few lines about the symptoms of bronchial asthma. As it is clear from the definition, what is the first symptom in bronchial asthma? Yes, dyspnea or breathlessness. Second is the cough, which is especially present in the night or in the early morning. Third is the chest tightness, and fourth is the wheezing. So wheezing is the characteristic high pitch expiratory sound. But wheezing is not present in all cases of asthma. Obviously wheezing can be heard during the auscultation with stethoscope. But wheezing is not characteristic for bronchial asthma. It is not present in all the cases of asthma, and apart from asthma it can be present in some other respiratory diseases. So dyspnea or breathlessness and limitation of activity along with the cough. So these type of the symptoms are present only in episodes. Okay. While in between two episodes the patient is normal, that is episodic or intermittent asthma. Second asthma is a persistent asthma, which can be classified as a chronic asthma. Okay, and depending upon the further severity it can be classified into the mild, moderate and severe. Okay, mild, moderate and severe persistent asthma. And this is important for giving the treatment of asthma. So we will see in the coming lectures how this classification is useful for the treatment approach of asthma. So this is all about the definition and types of asthma. So now we will see about the pathophysiology of asthma, and we will see in the various steps. First, there is the entry of antigen in the body. This antigen is foreign to our body. It can be anything like house dust or pollen grain or animal danders. This antigen will go into the respiratory tract, especially trachea and bronchi, and there in the respiratory smooth muscles it will react with antibody. Yes, IgE type of antibody. In asthma, as it is a type 1 allergic or type 1 hypersensitive reaction, there is especially an IgE type of antibody. When the antigen is coming for the first time, it will react with IgE antibody, and no further sequence will happen. This is called only as a sensitization. So antigen comes in the body and it will react with IgE antibody and no further processing. But when the same antigen comes in the body for the second time, then this antigen antibody complex will translocate and it will go to one of the cells, that is a mast cells. Okay, so mast cells which are present in the respiratory epithelium, this antigen antibody complex will attach on the surface of mast cell, and there is a specific receptor on the surface of mast cell which is called as the Fc epsilon R1. With the help of this receptor, the antigen antibody complex will attach to the mast cells. Now these mast cells, they contain certain storage granules within them, and these storage granules have stored the inflammatory mediators. So there are various inflammatory mediators which are stored in the mast cells. When the second time antigen comes, it will react with IgE antibody that will attach to the mast cells, and there will be a degranulation of mast cells. That is the next step, that is a degranulation of mast cell and release of various inflammatory mediators. Now these inflammatory mediators obviously will be responsible for inflammation. So there are two types of reaction depending upon the time sequence. There is an early phase reaction, which is especially a bronchoconstriction, and there is a late phase reaction in the asthma. So first we will see what is the early phase reaction. So whenever there is a degranulation of mast cells, there are the release of various inflammatory mediators, especially the histamine, leukotrienes. In that, two leukotrienes LTC4, LT means leukotriene, leukotriene C4 and leukotriene D4, and prostaglandin D2, PGD2. Okay, so these inflammatory mediators are released in the early phase reaction, and they will be responsible for the bronchoconstriction. And you know, leukotrienes, they are the powerful bronchoconstrictor, and that will be responsible for dyspnea or breathlessness, which is present in the patient of asthma. Apart from bronchoconstriction, there is an increased secretion of mucus hypersecretion, mucosal edema, okay, and mucus plugging, which is present in the respiratory tract, and that will result in the airway obstruction. While in the late phase reaction, okay, that obviously occurs late. Early phase reaction occurs within minutes and it lasts for 3 hours. Late phase reaction mostly starts after the 3 hours and then it can last for 10 to 18 hours. In late phase reaction, what happens? There are certain membrane phospholipids which are present in the surface of the mast cells. These membrane phospholipids, they get converted into the arachidonic acid, okay, with the help of one enzyme, that is a phospholipase A2. These membrane phospholipids get converted into the arachidonic acid with the help of enzyme phospholipase A2, and arachidonic acid further gets converted via the two pathways. One via the cyclooxygenase enzyme pathway, that is a COX pathway. It is converted into the prostaglandins. So there is a synthesis of prostaglandins through the cyclooxygenase enzyme, and second enzyme, that is a 5-lipoxygenase enzyme, there is a synthesis of leukotrienes. Leukotrienes, especially LTB4, LTC4 and LTD4 from the arachidonic acid. So this is the late phase reaction. And you know, this LTB4, it is a powerful chemotactic factor. Okay, chemotactic means it will attract the other inflammatory cells, and at the site of inflammation, the other cells like eosinophils, basophils and macrophages, they get attracted apart from mast cells, and eosinophils can release the eosinophil cationic protein, basophils and macrophages can release the various interleukins, okay, and this will give rise to the inflammation, further inflammation. Apart from that, the mast cells will also be responsible for the activation of T lymphocyte, which will release the interleukins, interleukin 4, 5, 13 and further other interleukins like TNF alpha, and they will also give rise to the inflammation, and that's why there is a chronic inflammation which is present in the asthma, especially because of this late phase reaction. So in pathophysiology and physiology, early phase reaction there is mainly a bronchoconstriction, and in the late phase mainly there is a chronic inflammation. That's why the drugs which we are giving, they are mostly the aborting this bronchoconstriction, that is bronchodilators, and aborting this chronic inflammation, that is anti-inflammatory drug, that is corticosteroids. Now we will see the approach to the treatment of asthma. We have learned the various steps in pathophysiology. Now we will see the treatment approach. So what is the first step? There is an entry of antigen in the body. So our first step in the treatment approach is also prevention of antigen antibody reaction. How this is possible? By preventing the exposure to the antigen, and the second by doing the hyposensitization. Okay, but this is a more or less practical approach and not possible practically to prevent the exposure to the antigen. So now what is the second step? This antigen react with the antibody. So our second step also in the treatment approach is neutralization of IgE antibody. Okay, so we are going to neutralize the IgE antibody with which the antigen is going to react. And how this is possible? Thus we have made one drug, omalizumab. The omalizumab is nothing but the antibody, monoclonal antibody, which is prepared from the outside or synthetically in the laboratory. So omalizumab. Remember, whenever there is a word mab in the end, it indicates monoclonal antibody. The ZU, it indicates the source from which this antibody is derived, either animal or human source or mixed one. So omalizumab is a monoclonal antibody which is prepared to neutralize the IgE type of the antibody. Then the third step is that this antigen antibody complex will react or will attach to the surface of mast cells, and then there is a degranulation of the mast cells. So whatever the inflammatory mediators they are stored in the mast cells, they are released in the bronchial epithelium. Okay, so we have to prevent this step. So the third step is prevention of release of mediators from the mast cells. Okay, and this is also called as a mast cell stabilization, and that's why the drugs are called as a mast cell stabilizers. So mast cell stabilizer, they are doing the prevention of release of mediators from the mast cells. So no release of mediator, no further consequences like bronchoconstriction or inflammation will occur. So in this category of mast cell stabilizers, there are three drugs. First is a sodium chromoglycate, or it is also called as a cromolyn sodium. Second is a nidocromil, and third is a ketotifen. Okay, so these three drugs, sodium chromoglycate, nidocromil and ketotifen, they are the mast cell stabilizer which will prevent the degranulation of mast cells and will prevent the further sequences which can happen in asthma. Okay, after this, our fourth step is that now these inflammatory mediators have already been released. Okay, now we have to antagonize these mediators, and our fourth step is antagonism of released mediators. Okay. So various mediators have been released in early phase reaction like histamine and leukotrienes, especially LTC4 and LTD4. Out of that, LTC4 and LTD4, they are the powerful bronchoconstrictor. That's why we are going to antagonize the LTC4 and LTD4, and these act on a receptors called cysteine leukotriene receptor. That's why the scientists have prepared the drug leukotriene receptor antagonist. Okay, leukotriene receptor antagonist, which will be inhibiting the cysteine leukotriene receptor on which LTC4 and LTD4 will act. So because of that, LTC4 and LTD4 will not be able to act on the receptor, and bronchoconstriction will not be produced. Okay, and the patient will get relief from the asthma. There are two drugs in this category of leukotriene receptor antagonist. One is a montelukast and second is a zafirlukast. Okay, montelukast and zafirlukast, and you can easily understand the name. Leuc means for leukotriene and AT for antagonist. So these are the leukotriene antagonist montelukast. Here also leukotriene antagonist zafirlukast. Okay, and the second drug in this category is the one which is inhibiting the 5-lipoxygenase enzyme. 5-lipoxygenase enzyme. Okay, as you know, from membrane phospholipid arachidonic acid is produced, and from arachidonic acid before LTC4 and LTD4 are produced, means leukotrienes are produced with the help of 5-lipoxygenase enzyme. So our next step is to inhibit the 5-lipoxygenase enzyme, and that is done by the drug Xyluton. Okay, Xyluton. As you can easily understand, there is a O in the word Xyluton and also O in the word 5-lipoxygenase enzyme name. Okay, so 5-lipoxygenase is inhibited by the Xyluton. So this is our fourth step, antagonism of release mediators. Step in the treatment approach is suppression of inflammation and bronchial hyperreactivity. If you remember the definition, this is a very important component in the pathophysiology, inflammation and bronchial hyperreactivity, and this is suppressed by the drugs called corticosteroids. So corticosteroids form the very important drug in the treatment approach of asthma, as they are removing the root cause, that is inflammation and bronchial hyperreactivity. So how the corticosteroids are doing this? Remember the late phase reaction, membrane phospholipids are converted into the arachidonic acid with the help of phospholipase A2 enzyme, and this phospholipase A2 enzyme is inhibited by corticosteroids through the production of substances called lipocortin 1 or annexin 1. So now arachidonic acid will not be produced because a phospholipase A2 enzyme is inhibited. So there will be no further sequences, no production of prostaglandins through the cyclooxygenase, and no production of leukotrienes through the 5-lipoxygenase enzyme. So in short, no inflammatory mediators will be produced by giving the corticosteroid, and that's why they can be useful in the treatment of asthma. So they are useful not because they are bronchodilator, but because they are anti-inflammatory. Okay, remember this is very commonly misunderstood by the students. So corticosteroid, they are anti-inflammatory and they are not bronchodilator. Now there are two types of the corticosteroid depending upon the route. Either they can be given by systemic route, that is by oral, intramuscular or IV route, and the mainly which are preferred by these routes are hydrocortisone and prednisolone. So hydrocortisone and prednisolone, they are preferred either by oral, intramuscular or IV route. And second are inhalational corticosteroids, which are given by meter dose inhaler. And these inhalational corticosteroids are preferred because they have a less chances of systemic side effects, because systemic side effects are very often present with the corticosteroid. So inhalational corticosteroids, they are given in all patients of persistent or chronic asthma, or you can say they are the first drug to be given in the persistent or chronic asthma. Which are they? Beclomethasone dipropionate, budesonide, fluticasone propionate, flunisolide and cyclesonide. So all these are the inhalational corticosteroid. The two are also them, triamcinolone and mometasone, but they are not preferred. Last drugs which are given in the treatment of bronchial asthma, and they are the most important apart from corticosteroids, and they are nothing but the bronchodilators. Okay. So bronchodilators, so we have seen in the early phase there is a bronchoconstriction and there may be an acute attack of asthma, so that's why we are giving the bronchodilators. So they are mostly tried in the acute cases or in a chronic cases whenever there is an acute exacerbation of asthma. So there are three type of classes of bronchodilator. One is a beta 2 receptor agonist, that is sympathomimetic drug. Second is a directly acting bronchodilator, that is a methylxanthine, and third is a anticholinergic drug which are inhibiting the cholinergic system, or they are also called parasympatholytic. So we'll see them step by step. So beta 2 agonist, so there are beta 2 receptor. Now this is a bronchial tree. There can happen a bronchodilation or there can happen a bronchoconstriction. So sympathetic system is if it is predominant, then bronchodilation will happen, and this will happen through the beta 2 receptor. So beta 2 agonists, they are stimulating the beta 2 receptor, which will stimulate the adenylyl cyclase enzyme that will convert the ATP into the cyclic AMP, and this cyclic AMP will produce the bronchodilation. That's why beta 2 agonists are given in the treatment of asthma. Depending upon the duration of action, beta 2 agonist can be short acting beta 2 agonist, that is called as a SABA, and long acting beta 2 agonist, that is called LABA. As the name indicates, SABA means short acting, they are preferred in acute attack of asthma, while LABA, that is a long acting, they are preferred in the persistent or chronic asthma. There are many drugs, but two important in the short acting beta 2 agonist are salbutamol and terbutaline. And salbutamol, as you know, this is a drug of choice for acute attack of asthma. While in long-acting beta 2 agonists, there are further two drugs, salmeterol and formoterol. Okay. Now coming to the second type of bronchodilators, and they are the methylxanthines. So methylxanthines, they are directly acting bronchodilator. Beta 2 agonists, they will stimulate the beta 2 receptor, so they are mimicking the dilator neurotransmitter, that is adrenaline. Okay. Methylxanthines, they are directly acting bronchodilator. There are two drugs which are important in methylxanthines, they are theophylline and aminophylline. Theophylline and aminophylline, they are the important among the methylxanthines. And how these are acting? Cyclic AMP, it is breakdown by phosphodiesterase enzyme. Okay, and this phosphodiesterase enzyme is inhibited by methylxanthines. And by inhibiting the phosphodiesterase enzyme, they will increase the cyclic AMP, which will achieve the bronchodilation. So this is the first mechanism of action of methylxanthine. Second, there is one natural substance in our body that is called adenosine, which will be responsible for bronchoconstriction. And this adenosine acts on receptors A1 and A3. So these adenosine A1 and A3 receptors are also inhibited by methylxanthines, because of which bronchoconstriction will not occur, and in short bronchodilation will be produced. So that is our second group of bronchodilator, methylxanthines. And our third group of bronchodilators are anticholinergics. Remember, in the bronchial tree, if the parasympathetic stimulation is predominant, bronchoconstriction will occur through the stimulation of M3 receptor. Okay, muscarinic receptor. This M3 receptor, they are present in the bronchial smooth muscle. They are stimulated by acetylcholine and will cause the bronchoconstriction. So if we have to achieve the bronchodilation, we have to give the anticholinergic drug which will inhibit the M3 receptor, and there are two drugs in this category, that is ipratropium bromide and tiotropium bromide. Ipratropium bromide and tiotropium bromide. So these are the third classes of anticholinergics which are causing the blockade of constrictor neurotransmitter, that is acetylcholine. So there are three classes of drugs: beta 2 agonist which are mimicking the dilator neurotransmitter, SABA and LABA, short acting salbutamol and terbutaline, long acting salmeterol and formoterol. Second is the methylxanthines which are directly acting bronchodilator, that is the theophylline and aminophylline. And third, which are the blocking the constrictor neurotransmitter, that is acetylcholine by inhibiting the M3 receptor, ipratropium bromide and tiotropium bromide. So this is all about the bronchial asthma classification and the treatment approach. In the next lecture we will see about the individual drug. Thank you guys. If you have liked the video, please subscribe to the channel.